Everyone needs to remember God is abundance. Remember, I said God's the greatest materialist of all. Look at the universe. So it's not a question of, is it spiritual to have a big home and a nice car? I mean, you've studied with Jason. Jason's kind of the epitome of a spiritual expression of abundance. The challenges with that kind of abundance, with money and stuff, is when we identify with it. And we'll know we're identified with it because if we lose it, and we feel naked in the world, like I'm a nobody now. I don't have my cool car, my big house, my flashy jewelry, or fancy clothes, or whatever. That's the lightning strike that helps you really get clear on your true spirituality. Now, there's another aspect, and I know this very well. Matter has to be constantly maintained to hold its form. You own a big house, you got constant maintenance issues. You own you're on a 25-acre farm. You just watch to see how much it takes to keep that thing breathing and living and make it actually cost less than it costs to run it. So what I'm saying is, whenever we try to put a fence around God and own it, God says, oh, congratulations, you now get to manage the upkeep of my creation. And that, trust me, can be quite a ball buster. My home and land, as much as I love it, my family's home, Penny and me and Angie, many of you have been here. I love it here. But boy, is it like I have to ask Great Spirit for help every day, because the cost of keeping this place alive and healthy is a lot. And so there's days I just feel like, man, I just am exhausted of constantly having to work to pay contractors and this system and that system breaking down. But I just ask Great Spirit to support me. And it's not because this is an ego site for me. It's not a tower, but it's a place of communion where Czech Institute classes are run, workshops are run. It's a place that we wanted to share with everybody. And it's everybody that comes here and does training with us that helps us pay for the place so that it can live. So if our orientation is to have and to love and to share, if we lose it from that perspective, then we just trust that Great Spirit's taking us to the next great adventure. Just like we almost lost the place, but it came back to us in a way that we could actually more realistically afford it, but we had to be willing to let go to get the gift or the surprise. Now, I'm going to hit you with another perspective, which is also very interesting. Remember, the natural state of God is zero. That's infinity. Remember, God is zero with a twist. That's infinity. God's infinite in every way. So if you think of how all graphs and scientific papers are written, there's a zero reference line. So if you're looking at how many people get a certain disease, it starts off at zero and it climbs up. So if 100% of people have X disease, it goes right to the top of the graph, right? You know the graph, right? Now, if you have a sine wave like electricity, you have a positive cycle above the line of zero and a negative below it. So I will remind you that Stephen Hawking, who is one of the pioneers of quantum physics and physics, identified that the actual state of the universe is zero. And he made a statement that I've used to teach people many times. And here's what he said to describe the natural state of the universe. He said, if I hand you a shovel and you dig a 3-foot hole, you'll see there's a 3-foot pile right next to you. So what he's saying is that the negative you created the positive, or to create a 3-foot pile of dirt, you had to create a 3-foot hole. Hopefully you're all with me so far. Okay. What is the tower? The tower is a very big pile of stones that somebody had to pull out of zero. But the natural resting state of God is zero. And we have a force called gravity that says, I want to go back to zero. So the more we build up above zero, the more we had to borrow the energy and the resources from zero. So every positive we make, look how big my house is, look at all my cars, we often become unconscious of the fact that we've left a negative to create the positive, and that creates a gravitational attraction, which requires our life force and our consciousness and our intention to maintain the loan. Even if we paid our castle off, we still borrowed that from God, and God says, my natural state is unconditional love. It's zero. So we must remember that whatever we put up, we invite the gravitational reality that it wants to go back to its resting state. If you build a house and leave it alone, come back in 100 years, it'll just be a pile of dust. It'll go back to zero. You put a steel post in the ground, come back in 100 years, there will be no post there. It'll just be rust laying on the ground, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So you see nature, trees grow and grow and grow, but then they die and come down. Every animal that's born lives a life, dies, and goes back to the soil. You see that the natural resting state of God is zero. So if it's not clear, what I'm saying to you is dream as big as you want to dream, but just know that you hold the responsibility of maintaining the balance. The guy you live with has to hold the balance on 25 acres because he put a fence around God and said, I own it. Let's take it one step further. When we fall in love with someone, one of the first things we do is think he or she is mine now. You put an invisible fence around that person. And you might tell yourself you're doing it in the name of love, but to the degree that that is neediness or is insecurity, then what you find is that that is almost an impossible fence to maintain, because to the degree you maintain it, you're actually not loving in a way that is an expression of the divine. You're loving in a way that is an expression of the shadow or of, the dark side, to own and control, right? And whenever you try to put a fence around God, you got to deal with it. You might want to meditate on these insights, because I certainly have meditated on them a lot. I know I can't maintain this property without God's help. And the day that it's gone, I just going to bow down and say, okay, where are you taking me next? I'm almost 64 years old. And quite frankly, I'm tired of fucking working hard. So the only way I can handle it, I went through a hard midlife crisis for 3 years because of the pressure of trying to maintain the Institute, which is very expensive. And so I learned to just turn it over to God and say, okay, I'll do my part, but I need you to do yours. So my point is, I don't personally, Paul Chek does not have the strength to keep the rainbow alive without God, Angie, and Penny fully invested. If Angie or Penny was to leave the equation, I'd have to put this place up for sale immediately. It takes all three of us every day to keep this place alive for our children, for our students, and as a gift to the world to say, look, this is what's possible. In summary, I've said God is abundance, but God's resting state is zero. And be very careful about putting a fence around God, because it comes at great cost, because God says, great, now you get to manage it.